So I've had not always harmonious neighbor relations because of the hubmobile. Many people in the community think it's awesome, such as was just shared in the chat room. Other people find it to be an eyesore. Other people are concerned that by parking RVs anywhere near, repeatedly, that you invite other people to use streets as storage areas. And so I've gone through some phases of battles, and eventually had some long meetings with the community outreach officer and really came to some common ground. And they told me, look, you're not breaking the law. You have to move it every 3 days. And as long as you do that, you're not breaking the law. So just, you're fine. Clearly, but they said, but keep in mind, there are people trying to get you. So move it every 3 days. So then a couple months later, after everything was resolved, I was, religiously moving it at least once every 3 days, which is actually a good thing to do for an old car. I'm told is to drive it around a little bit. So at least I started and go around the block at the minimum. So so I was getting ready for a festival, so I had the car, the hubmobile, right by my house, and I parked it there at night. And the reason why I don't park it in front of my house all the time is because the street I live on is very narrow. In fact, anytime I park on the street, we've got a really big sidewalk and a narrow street. So most people on my street park one wheel up on the sidewalk. Just it's way safer. So I had that. They did that with the hubmobile, and I woke up one morning and there was a police officer outside, kind of like looking into the windows of the hubmobile, in a place that I rarely park it, but because I was packing it, I left it there for the night. So then I kind of stumble out of bed, see her, then I walk. I'm like, "Hi, is everything okay?" And she's like, "Do you live in this thing?" And I'm like, "No, I live right here." She's like, "You can't park here." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's much safer." She's like, "You can't park up on the curb." I'm like, "Okay, all right. Let me move it." She's like, "We've getting reports that you're letting homeless people sleep in here." And I'm like, "What?" And here I just woke up. None of this makes sense to me because, in my mind, I had just resolved all of this with the neighbors and with the neighborhood watch. We've been on an email list, and I talked to the police, and I was like, I don't know. I'm like, no. There's a sign on the side of it that says we do a homeless thing once a month, but I mean, I guess a neighbor read that, and then rather than look at the URL, they just called the police on me. And they're like, well, and every time we come, we get reports that it's here, and then we come out to give you a ticket, and you just move it across the street. And I'm like, I was under the impression that actually is well within the law, and the intention of the law is to keep people from abandoning vehicles and storing them. And so I'm using the car, so that I was under the impression that if I move it, and so she's like, her brow all furrowed, and has this whole list of things that apparently somebody's been calling, filling her with all this stuff. And as I'm talking to her, I'm trying to calmly explain myself and let her know that, look, I pay rent here. I'm a neighbor. I'm a business owner. This car is a part of my business, and that I use frequently for charitable things as well as all sorts of things. And as this is going on, Billy Goat drives up in his convertible, shiny Mercedes, pulls over, gets out of his car, walks right by the cop, comes up to me, gives me a big hug, and then turns around and walks by the cop and says, "This is a good guy," and then got in his shiny Mercedes and drove away. And the cop was just like, and you could tell all of her agenda just kind of went, what am I doing? Like, I'm acting upon complaints from neighbors, but here clearly the neighbors do not dislike this guy, and everything he's telling me is so. The cop eventually was like, you know what? I'm gonna put a report in the system so that this doesn't happen again. And so she sat down and spent like 30 minutes writing all of this into the computer system, and I have not had a problem since. I still try to follow the rules and try to move it as often as I can. And so, for all I know, all is well. And the hubmobile is parked very close. I move it when I have to. And I'm very appreciative to Billy Goat and all the neighbors who embrace the hugmobile.